Okay, so Amazon has reacted to the amazing Amazon labor union victory in Staten Island. Let's go ahead and take a look at their statement. They say, "We're disappointed with the outcome of the election in Staten Island because we believe having a direct relationship with the company is best for our employees. We're evaluating our options, including filing objections based on the inappropriate and undue influence by the NLRB that we and others, including the National Retail Federation and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, witness in this election." Holy crap. This is Amazon basically claiming, rigged election. It's a rigged election. Stop the steal. They're going full Donald Trump on it. That's what this reads like to me. Now, the reason this is extra hilarious is what? Remember the Amazon union effort in Bessemer, Alabama? What happened? It's actually been proven now that Amazon engaged in a number of practices where they were trying to rig the election and rig the outcome. And by the way, Amazon ended up winning and the labor union lost. But when the NLRB looked into it and looked at all the evidence, they found in no uncertain terms, Amazon was cheating. And so now they've ordered a new election for Bessemer, Alabama. So this is classic projection. And this is what we've seen, to bring in the Donald Trump comparison again. This is what we've seen with the Republicans time and time again. They scream bloody murder and like it's the Democrats who are rigging the election as they engage in gerrymandering on a regular basis and rig the districts to maintain control and keep certain congressmen in power. Of course, there's the whole voter ID thing, which in moments of honesty, you've had Republican politicians admit what the voter ID thing is about, which is like, hey, look, we know that this, statistically speaking, it disenfranchises a number of poor people and people of color, and they overwhelmingly vote Democratic. So that's why we're in favor of doing that, because then it helps us win the election. So as they scream bloody murder, as they scream rigged election and stop the steal, they're doing a lot of things on their own to try to rig it. And this is exactly what Amazon is doing here. Oh my God, we think this union rigged it in New York. Yeah, because an upstart with a working class black man who did all the hard work and the organizing, who they raised like less than $150,000 on GoFundMe to even try to do this in the first place. Yeah, they have so much institutional support and power. Yeah, the NLRB is bending over backwards to cheat in favor of unions. No. You know who the cheaters almost always are in the context of these fights? The multi-billion-dollar corporations that break out all the stops in order to defeat any unionization effort. Because the way they look at it is, look, if there's a union, that's going to affect our profits because we're going to have to pay these workers more. We're going to have to give them more vacation time. It balances the power out much more than it is right now. It'll make it so that workers actually have a half of a decent say in the conversation when it comes to negotiating contracts and negotiating the terms. So this idea, it's amazing. They're going stop the steal. They're saying it's basically a rigged election, which is absolutely comical. I mean, look at what's happened to labor unions in this country over the course of the past few decades. I mean, they've been gutted. They've been obliterated. There was a time when a pretty decent percentage of the workforce was unionized. And then over time, that's gotten less and less and less. And now I think private sector unionization is at, 10%? Something like that? Used to be way higher than that. So there's been a war waged by the owner class on working people. And by the way, it's not a coincidence that when unions were strongest, you had the best working class wages. People actually had a decent shot at climbing that economic ladder and social mobility. And everybody thought, hey, the next generation is going to be better off than the previous generation because of all these protections that we've put in place. But of course, feels like the American dream is dead because we have a gig economy and people are wrongly categorized as independent contractors as opposed to employees. So they don't have a lot of the labor protections that go hand in hand with being an employee. And, they find ways to basically screw workers and pad the bottom line. Well, now, for the first time in my lifetime, unions are going on the offense. They're not playing defense anymore. And this is a wonderful victory for unions. And just like with Starbucks, this could spark a wildfire, man, where all these different Amazon facilities are unionizing. And I hope that's the case. And by the way, Amazon knows that's the case, which is why they're trying to kill this in the cradle. They're trying to nip it in the bud so that nobody gets any ideas about workers getting paid more and getting more vacation time and having a better shot at life. So just to give you guys some more information. So the vote at the Staten Island warehouse was 2,654 in favor of forming a union to 2,131 against. So they won by a decent amount, man. They won by what, about 500 votes? There were 67 challenged ballots and 17 that were voided. I like this quote from Chris Smalls. He says, "We want to thank Jeff Bezos for going to space because while he was up there, we were organizing a union." That's badass. Now, another warehouse at the same complex on Staten Island, LDJ5, will begin a vote to unionize with the ALU on April 25th. So there's another one coming up. By the way, AOC, if you want to make up for the fact that you weren't there before, okay, do something to help this one. Or other people as well who maybe sat on the sidelines, but they shouldn't have. You can get involved. You can do something to help this one. And ALU Vice President Derek Palmer, he was outside of the building talking to the media when the victory happened. And he said, quote, "But we just went out there and did it. Workers unionizing the second largest private employer in the country." That is an amazing accomplishment. Because again, this sets a precedent. And it could be a spark that leads to a wildfire. And when you win against one of the largest corporate behemoths in the country, well, now as people start looking around at each other, workers start looking around and saying, well, if they could do it, why can't we do it? And that's why Amazon is going stop the steal. That's why they're going rigged election. Because they know what the stakes are. And the stakes are potentially lower profit margins for them, but their workers get treated right. Their workers can make higher wages, have more vacation time, better benefits, and they don't want that. They don't want that. There's been a number of stories about how Amazon wants their workers like overworked and desperate, and then they do high turnover. They bring in new people and they axe the old people. I mean, there's been a number of horror stories. You guys know this about what went down with Amazon, where Ken Klippenstein reported that there's been a number of people, the truck drivers who have to piss in bottles and shit in bags, and they've found it in the trucks because they're on such a tight schedule that they have to make ends. They have to do their route and make ends meet. And so I'll get fired if I stop. I don't want to stop. And they'll just shit in a bag. There's been issues with temperature and climate control in factories where they could be too hot or they could be too cold. Obviously, what Chris Smalls blew the whistle on was the lack of PPE protections during the height of the COVID pandemic, where you'd watch people throw up and pass out right there on the floor, not being granted time off, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all these issues. The way you fight back against this is through unions. And something really incredible just happened. This is a huge moment, guys. I can't stress it enough. And we are, without a doubt, in a new era when it comes to labor unions in this country. This is a new era. You know, gone are the days of just playing defense. Now they're playing offense. Look at the John Deere workers. Look at what's happening with Starbucks. And now Amazon too. Inject it straight in my veins. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.